What's up, children of the sun? This is your spiritual advisor and spiritual nomad, Montre Bible. Yep, that's my real last name. Today, I want to talk about NPCs. What are they, and and how do you know you're not one? I don't know. Hopefully, you're not. Hopefully, we're dealing with people who are soulful beings. But there is a difference. I have spoken about it in other videos in the past. The difference, and I'll be sure to share a link to my video on soulless beings if you haven't seen it, and who are the soulless ones. And I don't ever see it as a negative thing. I've never thought it as a negative thing. Actually, these are just avatars that are going through life, and they kind of just go with the motions. They don't make a lot of choices that change, or choices that change reality, as while people with souls typically make choices that do affect reality. So we interact with these people every day. And then right now, I found this really great video, and I wanted to share it with you guys to kind of give an explanation on it. And this is coming from the channel The Alchemist. And it's a pretty good video. So let's go through it, and then I'll give my commentary on what NPCs or non-playable characters are. So without further ado, let's get to it. Ooh, I like the intro.
One of the most popular questions that I receive is on the topic of NPCs, otherwise known as non-player characters, or as Dolores Cannon coined the term, background characters.
I love her book.
So today I'm going to be explaining exactly what NPCs are and their true origins. The overall concept of NPCs, or non-player characters, did not originate within the spirit of this age. However, the most recent story or element of this background characters concept was given to us by Dolores Cannon, whose work revealed that there is some sort of composite, human-like people that are a part of our reality, but that don't actually have souls. They don't actually composite a unit within themselves of consciousness. And in that sense, they're strictly energy. They're just a matrix simulation version of a person that appears in every way like they are a real living human being with a soul.
Now let's understand the difference, and I wanted to stop right there. The difference between everything is energy. Okay, we know that everything is energy, and for my explanation, is energy synonymous with spirit. So we are all connected to spirit, and spirit is the creative moving force that is neither created nor destroyed. So when a being comes into, or when anything comes into being, into reality, it has source energy or spirit energy. But the soul is that creative spark that we connect with the source, to it, where the source is little bits of that creative force. Okay, so the one, or the source, has broken itself up into smaller souls to experience that reality. Okay, so you have the reality that's built, the environment and the characters. Then you have source soul, the one that we come from, breaking itself into the reality to experience the reality. Okay, so creating the game, and then becoming the player. Okay, so think of it like that, as a big old video game. All right.
But that they are just energy. They're a simulated version of a human in order to animate and enhance and even amplify our experience here in the third dimension. And so, what this came from was a way to explain why some beings have more of what we would call a higher consciousness, or more of a soulful and developed soul within our being, why we can see through illusions that other people don't seem to be able to see through, or that we can think for ourselves, or that we have certain capacities of critical thinking that other people don't seem to display that they have, or that they don't even seem to have the capacity for.
Have you heard about those people who like don't have inner dialogue? That they were saying, like, some people don't have inner dialogue at all. Like, when I'm thinking, I can hear my thoughts. Even when I'm not speaking, I have conversations in my head, and sometimes I have an argument with myself. That's how literally it gets with me. But I can hear my voice. Like, I can hear my voice in my head. Okay. And it's not something outside of myself, it's me. There are people who say they do not have an inner monologue in their head. When they're reading or whatever, they're just like, whatever. It's just when they're speaking in that moment, which I find really weird, but it's a real thing. But it makes me question, are they just NPCs?
If you'd like to know more about this, you can watch my video on this topic, Energy Vampires. That video goes
Mm,
more into depth about how unconscious individuals can act in every way energetically vampirical
I think that was
without
my
even meaning
ex.
to, simply because unconsciousness is bound to drain. It's
Eh,
just draining.
Ever been in a
That's the
relationship
nature
with
of being
one?
unconscious. So, when it comes to these NPCs, what is looked at is that they're more of like the background characters, as though we're in a movie and we're the main character, and that they provide all of the different extras that we need inside our scenes of our life. Why? To enhance our own learning ability,
Right.
so that us, the ones who have a soul and the ones who have a consciousness embodied within our physical vessel, can learn and can better have the friction from these background characters supplied to us.
And to add on that, this is not necessarily good or bad. So you will have people in your life that are not conscious, highly conscious souls, but they're NPCs and they may do negative things to you. Like, how can a person do that to me? This person's put there to challenge you. That person was put there in your life to challenge you. And there are going to be some good ones too. They're going to help you out, So I see it as a universe putting people in your way to challenge you and make you stronger, and also putting people in your way in your life to encourage you. Just like when you're playing, like if you ever play Legend of Zelda and there's all of a sudden there's that character that puts you on a quest, it's kind of like that.
According to Dolores Cannon's research from hypnotherapy sessions, non player characters do not have a higher self. They are projections of energy that are taken from one star system to another to play background character roles. They are holographic images that are made solid by the attention that individuals who do have a soul give them. Whether we think that Miss Cannon had incorrectly received this information based on her own belief systems, or we fully believe that backdrop characters exist, non player characters have no creative spark. They are described as software programs that have no real purpose other than to be the extras in our play.
And we're starting to see
But
this
they help
more
our
with
own
AI. We're starting to see this more with AI. The more AI becomes realistic and able to sound human and react, but as human as it may sound, and as smart as it may be, and have the ability to have a conversation with you, it's not human. Okay, it's not a soul. It's a program. And I have you tried ChatGPT voice? It will blow your mind. I may have a video on that later of how realistic ChatGPT voice can get.
evolution by creating a realistic atmosphere for us to live out our experience in, as well as enhancing our curriculum in this dimension, especially by learning how to raise our frequency into compassion and unconditional love. It's kind of like shadow boxing or sparring. That's where, in this new age and the spirit of this age, background characters comes from. There's one more version of this story, though, that's relevant within the spirit of this age. And in this version, there's a far more compassionate lens that is filtered through this narrative. And with that one, what this has to do with background characters, why there's even a necessity for non playing characters, beings that don't have a soul and that look like they're just running a simulation, would be because of extreme amounts of torture, trauma, and suffering. So, in this version of the story of why background characters exist, they exist more so for the purpose of when real, live humans who have a soul, but aren't displaying those features of having a soul, act in very traumatizing ways and inflict physical pain onto others. So, in this version of why non player characters exist, it would be because the organic matrix that we are projecting our consciousness into to have this physical third dimensional experience has innately within it free will.
Mm-hmm.
And so a soulful individual can use their free will to inflict extraordinary amounts of physical pain onto others. But this organic matrix doesn't agree with that. And so even though they can't stop and intervene on a souled person's free will to inflict pain, what they can do is swap out that individual that is having that amount of extraordinary physical pain inflicted onto them. So if they can't stop the free will of a person who's in a state of torturing another, what they can at least do is swap out the souled being that's having that amount of extraordinary pain inflicted on them, and then put in its place a part of that matrix energy. So it's animated there and it's still having the pain inflicted, but that there's not an actual consciousness that is having that amount of torture inflicted upon them.
See, and that goes back into the split personalities, and when people get tortured, they leave for a minute, especially when you're talking about satanic ritual abuse, SRA. That's what they do to children, but it's a program of the universe to take you out for a second. But if what these evil people are doing, they're using that to actually disassociate children and make them NPCs, like controllable NPCs. So interesting concept that she's talking about here, where souls will be swapped out if they're going through too much abuse. And that's how people forget stuff too, because you weren't actually there. Also with what was I thinking? Near-death experiences where one soul will actually leave the body and another soul will replace it. And I think I had an experience like that as a child, where a near-death experience happens and one soul will leave and a new soul will replace it. The avatar replace the body, but we can talk about that later. If you want to know more, you leave me a comment.
The reason why this story of the background characters came into fruition is due to the fact that if we are in an organic matrix, then it would operate in a way that's most efficient. And looking from things from strictly an efficiency point of view, it simply would not be beneficial and therefore efficient for that souled individual who's having that amount of torture inflicted upon them to be able to go through that experience, because it would take them around 20 more lifetimes after that to even deal with, grapple with, and start beginning to heal that amount of pain given within that lifetime. But that individual, the souled unit that's inflicting that pain, has not only free will, but also their own lessons and therefore their own karma involved with that situation. So the situation cannot be stopped. And the situation also is something that the one who's inflicting the pain needs to learn and develop through, or with their own free will, choose to not develop through. And so in this version of the narrative of background characters, we're looking at this organic matrix as being one that has an inclination. It has a bias towards being beneficial and loving because love is efficient. I would personally so love for this version of background characters to be the truth, knowing that there's this organic matrix that is fueled by compassion and substitutes a player in for one that's just animated energy in order for that lesson to still be carried out, but not at the total travesty and fragmentation of the being that's receiving that level of abuse.
And think of it like a game, and a huge game. When you're playing a game and a character, and that character dies, or you have 3 hearts left and it dies, you could decide to continue to play with that character, or you could switch out and say, you know what, I don't want to play with this character because it's too weak. I need to change to a different character that's a little bit stronger to defeat this big boss. Like Street Fighter or something like that. If you were playing Street Fighter, You're like, man, I can't get through this particular level, so let me change my characters out. So think of it like that. But also to add on to what she's talking about is when a soulful being does something that's negative, the karmic the karmic reaction is far more intense for a person who's a soulful being than one that is just an NPC. Because NPC level is just a character in the matrix. They may be programmed to do negative things, but that's a part of the program. So when you're like, why is it some people get away with some of the most evil things, but I can't? Because that's a part of the program. Some people are just straight up evil. That's what I'm saying. There's some evil people in this world. There's some evil characters in this world, and their whole program is to do evil, to challenge you to step up, speak up, and do something, or just be quiet. Play the game on autopilot.
However, I've seen in my personal life experiences dealing with others, this is not the case. People go through horrific challenges, horrific levels of abuse, and end up coming out not being a non player character. But I do like that version of the story. So the question becomes, why would the
But like I said, how is it that you have some people who do very horrible things? The people like, I believe that, especially with this Diddy stuff that's going on, you see how this karmic blowback is happening so hard with him? I believe he has a soul, but he's made a lot of bad choices. And now that karma is coming back around. People who get away with stuff like this, you don't see that karmic blowback as hard. You like, so there's a lot of people, like I said, who are very dark and evil and do a lot of evil things behind the scenes. And I've made videos about that. And it's like, well, why is it anything happening to them? Either you don't hear about them anymore or they just disappear off the face of the earth. It's about our focus and our consciousness and who we're focused on. Okay, so those people don't have souls because, like, how do you hurt children, right?
The New Age becomes so narcissistically inclined that we truly believe that we are the main characters within this storyline, and that anything that is outside of our environment and outside of our microcosm sphere of reality is actually just lessons that are being played out by animated energy that aren't filled with composites of soul. This actually doesn't come from a super like megalomaniac perception. This was one more element, one more gift to a larger and far ancient story that has to do with what this concept of non-background characters is. It originates within Gnosticism. So in Gnosticism,
I
there
like
are three
narcissists.
categories of beings here in human form. What they are hylics, psychics, and pneumatics. When I'm referring to a class of humans that are grouped together known as psychics, it has nothing to do with psychic abilities. It's in reference to souled individuals. Psyche is correspondent with the soul, and this has been known since ancient times. The psyche is a representative of the soul. Pneumatics are what you could call the most soul and therefore the most
Numa.
embodiment of spirit within our human experience. So you have the pneumatics being what you would call the most highest consciousness humans. And then you have the psychics, which are souled individuals, but they're not as developed, they're not as evolved and
I
further
think I'm in
along
that
in
middle
their
ground.
evolutionary process
I need some
as
work,
the
man.
pneumatics.
I think the pneumatics are going to be those really highly leveled spiritual gurus, and they're like they have like really strong abilities. Have you seen those videos of those guys? Like, there's one guy, he could take his chi and start a fire and stuff. I'm like, how did he do that? I want to learn how to do that. Or who have like very strong abilities to heal with their hands and their body and use Reiki and stuff like that, which I don't want to learn. I'm trying to. I think I'm in the psychic area. I got some work to do.
And then you have this third grade of soul group here. And this third grade is called the Hylics. If you'd like to know more about these three different categories of soul groups, you can watch my video on this topic titled the three types of souls inside this matrix.
She giving me
So
homework.
in this last category of Helix, this would be where the origins of what we know today in this new age as non-player characters come from. Because in this older version of the story, the Helix were the group soul here that did not have an individuated soul. They more corresponded with the elements of matter, meaning they weren't
This
made
reality.
up much of spirit and of soul. So they came from a pool. The main feature of this group is their dependency on the material world to access truth. Their level of awareness is confusion because their inner world is no more than cognitive dissonance. They do not have a link to the heart center or the three higher energy centers. They source their energy entirely from material existence.
The reality world.
Yet they enrich our own journey through the contrast that they provide. How many times have we debated a family member at a holiday dinner who refused to acknowledge some deeper layer of reality?
Have you seen those people who, I know I got all these references. There's some people who play these video games and they try to tell the people, the characters in the video game, that it's a video game, and the characters were like, what? This is real life. But when you have conversations with people about like a lot of spiritual concepts, they don't get it. They can't get it because they're too rooted into this this matrix that we live in, and this world is all they know. That's reality. If they don't see it with their eyes, they can't. They don't believe it. You know, they just don't believe it. Even though, like, you could tell them, like, I can feel this and I feel this, and like, no, that doesn't mean anything.
Beyond their worldview, they help us become aware of our blind spots and expectations through their denial. And so, when it comes to these Helix, it's a very low level of human consciousness. It's in its most base form, to the point where Leonardo da Vinci would have called it the third category: those who see when shown, but those who do not see. The Helix, or the background characters,
those who are
in this
asleep,
case, are those that do not see. They do not have the capacity to see.
They
in
are not
this
conscious.
lifetime. That does not make them completely animated by an organic matrix. That does not make them sheerly energy. In fact, Boris Moraviev, in his book Gnosis, has a trilogy, and within it, he speaks about there being organic portals. Organic portals. Once again, you have this theme of unconsciousness, background characters, or what we would call organic portals.
I'm gonna stop right there because that is a perfect example of what I've been trying to explain. What I explained in my other video when I was talking about that NPCs are avatars, that are avatars for souls, okay? And that there's only a certain amount or a finite number of souls. And when we incarnate into this world, we use those empty soul vessels to incarnate into. And we don't necessarily, when we reincarnate, people's like, you don't reincarnate necessarily into the future. You can reincarnate into 1980 or 1970 or 1950 or 1860 or whatever. You could reincarnate into another avatar, but it has to be an empty one. It has to be an NPC. And when you do that, you could change things in that reality that you incarnate into, because we live in a multiverse, right? So you could change things in that reality. So if you remember that show, Quantum Leap, Sam Beckett, he would go back into the past and make things right, which once went wrong. That's kind of like how it is. You're quantum leaping. And that's how I kind of think what the Mandela effect is that we are all collectively creating consciousness when souls go through time. But there is an adverse or an opposite energy that are soulless beings that are artificially trying to stop us, kind of like the Terminator. Some artificial beings, some soulless ones who are pretending to be us, and they're trying to stop those soulful ones from advancing. The Terminator is a perfect example of that. They're creating this artificial way of changing time, and which is why I think the Mandela effect is happening, because they're changing time an artificial way, CERN, and trying to create reality in a way they want. But it's up to the souls here to stay conscious and make positive change and defeat the artificial ones. Okay, and like I said, the avatars that we come into are those NPCs. You know, when we're coming back into this matrix. But right now, you're in this matrix now. If you have a soul, you're in this matrix now with this particular avatar that you have. But maybe in another multiverse, Montre is an NPC because I'm not. Your soul can only live in one timeline at a time. Boom. Sorry, I said a lot. I said a mouthful.
And the most famous reference within the spirit of this age to what this older theme called organic portals or hylics would be in reference to is in the movie The Matrix, when the
Yep,
agent
that movie too.
can insert himself into any person whose consciousness is still plugged into the matrix, meaning they don't operate individuated.
And the
They're
agent
not
kind of
their own
represents
sovereign entity. They're still
that
plugged into
program.
a larger pool. And that
Mhm.
larger pool can be a portal. And so, in this sense, they're not sheerly synthetic, they're organic, meaning they're human, but yet they can be this portal that's used in order to attack others or in order to
Mhm.
hinder others progress or whatever have you. They don't have a mind of their own.
It's a game.
And this organic portal concept is what we know in this age as the agent that can go and tap into any person that's plugged into the matrix.
And
So
mess
you
with
see this
you.
constant theme because it's really easy to just call the new age super like hyper narcissistic for coming up with these background characters. But that's our way in this age of understanding a concept that has a more holistic perception to it. And it's not necessarily they're here for our growth, because the universe in and of itself has no charity. That means that anytime a being is in some sort of reality that they've opted into, where other individuals don't have souls or don't have a developed soul the way that they do, that doesn't mean that they're here departing their charity onto others. Organic portals, or in this sense, hylics, do have the capacity to become souled individuals and to become like Pinocchio, a real boy.
And there was like going back to the quantum leap example. There was a season with Quantum Leap when Sam was leaping and he met the Dark Leaper, and she was leaping too, messing things up. So that'd be an example of someone who has a soul, but they're able to go through time and space and leap and quantum leap through time, but they're doing dark stuff. They're using their soul for negative things, which, like I said, I go back to the P. Diddy. I do believe P. Diddy has a soul, but that karmic blowback is hitting him hard. And their mission, because they basically sold their soul. They're letting the negative entities in this world, the lower energies, control them, because the lower energies can't do anything without your permission. Like really, because you got God energy when you have a soul. You have the ability to create things and make change. Demons cannot do that on their own. Okay, the angels are higher beings, and they can't do anything on their own without permission. That's why we have to ask the angels to do stuff. Just because you have a guardian angel doesn't mean they're going to do anything for you. You got to ask. And the demons can't really do anything unless they manipulate you into it. So back off that tangent.
By engaging with souled individuals and with the pneumatic class. So they do gain a tremendous amount by having this shared experience, because our soul unit is reflecting upon ourselves through them, and our
Mm-hmm.
spirit is allowing them to entrain to their own. So it's kind of like growing a plant. We water them with our capacity to engage and interact with them.
I said it
But
in my
if we're
other video.
expecting,
I said that you can tell a soulless one because the more you hang around them, the more they become like you. Like they start pulling on your traits. And they start because they're absorbing your energy because they're empty vessels. They're empty vessels. But a part of you will reflect onto them. And so the next time that they incarnate, they have a piece of you. And so they still have lessons to learn, but a piece of you is with them. And that's when you have those, that's when you have twin flame energy, um, not twin flame energy, soul ties. Sorry, I say twin flames. Twin flames is something different. Soul ties with people because you have imparted a part of your soul into an empty vessel, and they are feeding off of you and they need you. And that's why you have a lot of negative folks in your life who come back in your life after they've treated you so horribly, because they're probably empty souls or empty vessels. And they felt life for the first time with you. But now that you're gone, they are drained. Their energy's like fading. And they're gonna look for you again. Trust me, they will come back. But you got to decide if you want to go through that lesson again. And once you feel like, nah, I'm ready to go to the next level, then they will disappear.
Them to come into fruition, come into full life within this lifetime, that will not happen. That's just not the capacity. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. There's nothing about inferiority or superiority. We could even look at ourselves as once being at this stage of development.
We all have
Would
been
we
there.
look down on ourselves? Would we even look down on a child? No. So in this case, the organic portals or Hylics or NPCs, whatever we want to call them, aren't actually just holographic images that are meant to make our experience feel more real. As a matter of fact, innocently enough, that comes from the thought form of solipsism. And solipsism is
I'm gonna
the
write that
shadow
down.
side of oneness. It's where we tap into oneness, but it's a confused state of oneness where we kind of just think everything's about us.
Okay.
But instead, if the
Solipsism.
universe doesn't depart charity onto anything, then there's inherently some sort of advantage that we ourselves would gain by interacting inside a shared experience where there's these different levels of development or these different levels of growth. The universe doesn't care about PC. And it would also
Mm-mm.
explain why my neighbors never bring home groceries,
Wait a
even
minute.
though I don't watch. But the truth of the matter,
I've noticed that too. Have you guys ever noticed like you have neighbors and you don't really see them? Like I have my whole apartment complex. It's huge, a lot of cars, but I never see these people like around the apartments. I'm like, I see the same. I would say one, two, three, four, maybe the same 10 people, but parking lot will be full. I don't see these people, and I walk around, and I live on a balcony. I don't live on the balcony, but I'm nosy. I look. I don't, and I rarely see people getting groceries. When I had a friend post that on Facebook one time, she's like, "I never see my neighbors bring home groceries. What are they doing?" It makes you think.
is they just have an entirely different curriculum than the other soul groups. And it might involve not eating. In fact, no matter how much spirit we come into this reality with, everyone starts off more or less in a state of possession. This is just point blank true. Whenever
I know that one of my neighbors is an NPC for sure. Like his little routine: go home, go to work, go home, go to work. I tried to say hi to him one time, and he just kind of ignored me. Like, you're messing up the routine. It's like when you try to talk to a character in a video game and they just keep doing what they do. They just walk past you. You're like, hey, because he's my neighbor. I want to say hi, but he just kind of goes through his little routine. I was like, I mean, I could say mental disorder, but I think he's an NPC, like for sure.
we come into such an unconsciously inclined experience, whether it's for our learning capacity, growth, whatever your personal paradigm is, it's coming through with the inclination towards there being so many different forces that act upon the souled individual that everything becomes so highly influential, a person cannot truly say that they are the one calling the shots. They are the ones taking those free will actions. They are the ones that are having a strong enough clarity and awareness in order to move through their life uninfluenced. And because of that, we all come in straight up possessed. And it's only people who start developing their own consciousness. It's that journey from Pinocchio to a real boy that we all go through that gives us more and more soul. It gives us more consciousness, and with that, more creative essence. So all of us are in our own way going through our own journey into becoming more real. I hope why don't my neighbors eat? Make sure to subscribe to my channel for higher dimensional guidance through spiritual awakening. See you next time.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Be sure to visit her channel, The Alchemist. I'll put a link to her channel so you can check it out and watch some of her. She's got awesome videos. And in summary, we are the soulful people. We are a spark of the source, and we have the ability to make change. And things, most of the time, things don't change until you do it. That's what I'm saying. Make your reality happen, because if you don't do it, who will? That's what I mean. It's like the NPCs don't really make change. They do the same routine in out every day, and everything pretty much stays the same. But when you come in the world, you break that up. You stir things up. And that's what I'm saying. Don't go with the flow, because majority of these people are going to go with the flow on what the government told them to do. Let's do this. Let's do that. And here's your new mandate. And those people will do what they're told. Why? Because they're a part of the program. They're part of the matrix. And that's what they're supposed to do. You, however, are not. If you're watching my video, and I believe you have a soul, and there's a few of us out there, I think we're just scattered abroad, right? And we're here to make a difference. We're here to make a creative difference in this world, to use our gifts, our abilities, and our powers to make change. Be like Sam Beckett on Quantum Leap, y'all, and make your reality happen. Because if you don't do it, then who will? Leave me a comment, subscribe, and like this video. All right. Talk to you guys later.